introducing Brian Furley, who is the executive director of SETI, who will welcome us and say a few words about contextually engaged theological education of South Florida. How's that?
Well, let me then say, what a joy it is to see each and every one of you. You know, SETI carries on the vision of the Florida Center for Theological Studies. And the vision of the Florida Center for Theological Studies from the very start was to bring together a wide diversity of people together for theological and spiritual work and training, to be in ministry and service to others here in South Florida. And really to connect then from all around the world, because truly South Florida connects from all around the world. As you know, SETI carries on that legacy and in fact sits on top of the continuing incorporation of FCTS. And so it's such a beautiful, beautiful legacy to carry on from the early 1980s into the future. In fact, if you count it all up, we're talking already, get this, more than 40 years. Isn't that amazing? Yet here we are. And as we grow into the 21st century, it's clear that we're growing into a time of crisis, real crisis, not simply the kind of things that we might have heard growing up or over the course of so many years that, hey, there's this crisis, that crisis. We're growing up in a time of mega crisis, pan crisis, crisis everywhere, crisis deep down in the earth, crisis in the environment, crisis in the world surrounding us, crises of violence, and other kinds of crises that we're very aware as we look towards November. Let's keep all of these things in mind as we consider the planet and consider the challenges of our time. And as we do so, let's also take a look at what really brings us together, that common sense of spirituality, the common sense that there is something far beyond the everyday trivialities that so much of us focus on. We need to, but can easily drain our energy and prevent us from doing what really needs to be done. To think big, to aim for the deeper, the transcendent, the spiritual, the deeply connected. And this is what it's all about. I want to say just one more thing. I know that you'll be introducing yourselves and sharing in just a moment. I want to say that that I have had the privilege of being part of South Florida's community only since 2008. But there are some folks here who go way back in the Florida Center for Theological Studies, and of course in the Institute of Pastoral Ministry at St. Thomas University and the School of Theology and Ministry at St. Thomas University, and who carry on the legacy as part of SETI. There are people on this call who have done various degrees, the MDiv degree, other master's level degrees, the Master of Arts in Pastoral Ministry, the PhD, others who have taught and researched and led, and still others who have joined us just for the very first time. All are welcome. We're all in it together. No one is too late and no one is too early. We're all just at the right time. I'd like to only say just one more thing right now, which is on October 12th, we will be celebrating someone who just has not been celebrated nearly the way he should be, and that is Pat O'Neill. Father Pat O'Neill, who has done so much for the South Florida community, oftentimes quietly, oftentimes behind the scenes, oftentimes just to connect and to serve, needs to be celebrated. And so we, SETI, propose to celebrate him at a special luncheon we'll be doing on Saturday, October 12th. It'll be at Florida Memorial University. We will be reserving a good chunk of that space because we also want to celebrate the diversity that's represented by our HBCU in Miami-Dade. And we will be gathering in a really special way to celebrate the tremendous gifts he has made to South Florida since he first came down and was part of this community, going back, if memory serves, in the late 1970s. Was it 1977? Was it 78, 79? However you want to count it up, it's more than a few years, y'all. So I just want to say right now, as we all make plans to celebrate for the future that we're also celebrating in the present, because we're gathering right now. And this is not simply a time to be all buttoned up and all concerned and all shaking in our boots and all studying up. Oh yeah, it's important that we do those things. We got to do them proper times, proper ways. But you know what we most got to do is to celebrate. Because if we cannot come together and just be present to each other, we're wasting our time. You've all heard way more than enough you need to from me. I simply am privileged and pleased as the one who gets to call himself, at least every once in a while, the executive director of SETI. The joy of greeting all of you, and deepest thanks to Sue Gallagher and Joe Iannone for all they're doing to make this happen, as well as behind the scenes, Natasha Wright, and really each and every one of you. And of course, most especially, we want to thank our speaker this evening and all of you, because truly all of you are speakers and thinkers and thought leaders as well. Thank you all. I've said all I have to say. I'm now going to dip behind and my quiet and just listen in as we carry on. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Brian. And I'd like to take a moment to share an opening prayer and centering with all of you. So I would invite you first to find your feet, because we all share this planet. And when we can feel ourselves connected to the planet, it becomes an opportunity to feel what Brian spoke about, that which connects us, that which draws us in deeper. So I would invite you just to take a moment to feel your feet on the ground. If you'd like to close your eyes, you're welcome. If not, you're welcome to keep your eyes open. But let us just take a moment to give gratitude to that which gives life, to that which takes life, to that which sustains life. We ask that this energy of life and light and love bless each of us here, bless all of us here, and bless our time together, that it may be fruitful and generative and life-giving. We give thanks for Marianne coming this evening to share her light and her wisdom. And we thank all of you for being here. And we ask that we draw down the grace and the love of the God of many names in whom we dwell. Amen.
Thank you, Sue. We're now going to do a check-in. We'll say our name, our location, and then what attracted you here this evening. I'll start, and then if you would, I'll turn it to somebody, and then you read somebody's name, and it's like a talking poll. Just keep passing it among yourselves. I'm Joe Iannone. I'm here in Hollywood, Florida. What attracts me, of course, is the content, but more the relationships that'll happen tonight, the energy that will be communicated by conversation of the people who are here tonight, because we're the people who are meant to be here tonight. And this sharing will be something bigger than any one of us, including myself. So with that in mind, I'm going to turn it to Gail.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Gail Worcello, and I am in northern Vermont near the Canadian border. And I'm here because of Joe. We somehow got connected, and yet I've heard about your program, your CC program, for many years. Somehow in the back of my mind through Miriam McGillis and just the Assisi programs that were run in the past. And then Joe sent me the PDF of the book on Thomas Berry and the conversations. So I am part of a co-founder with Thomas Berry of Sisters of the Earth community, and I'm very happy to be here with all of you.
Thank you.
And I will call on Elizabeth.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth, and I live in North Carolina in the city of Raleigh, the land of the Cherokee. It's such a wonderful group. And although I have another meeting that was organized much longer than this. I couldn't not be here, for at least for a bit. Such a wonderful fellowship and I'm looking so much forward to the talk as much as I can. Thank you so much. And I'm going to pass on the baton to Sharon Joy.
How did I know you were going to do that, Elizabeth? Good afternoon, everybody. And hi, Marianne. What a treat to see you again through Joe. And Douglas, thank you for the link. Hello, strangers. So I look forward to learning more about you and creating webs of inquiry, and then we won't be strangers anymore. So then I pass it on to Donald.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Pleased to be here. My name is Donald Combo. I am up here, I guess it's up here in Indianapolis, Indiana. What has always attracted me to this group and constantly attracts me to this group is the human flourishing. We are so blessed to be in the group of people who want this earth to flourish. And so I am always looking forward to SETI because I know there's a lot of human flourishing here. And that gives me hope. And I will pass it on to, let me see, Ann Holtz, I guess.
How about I pass it on to Catherine and I'll go last and introduce myself.
Okay.
Sure. Hi. I actually go by Katie. I should change my name there. And I'm a clergy and I live in Miami and I am here. The topic interests me and also it's important to me to stay connected to SETI. I am a graduate of the Florida Center for Theological Studies over 20 years ago. I hope as my mix of activities shift and change that SETI will continue to grow in my portfolio. So it's great to be here. And I turn it over to Julius.
Hello, greetings from South Florida. I am in Delray Beach, Florida, not too far from Miami. I'm in the Sunshine State, although it's storming and raining crazy right now. But we thank God for the rain. We've been waiting for it. I am part of the pastoral care team here at Trinity Delray Lutheran Church. And I am, ever since I came across this organization and what it offers in terms of learning, networking, and just community, it's been a very strong pull for me to be able to just fellowship and listen and learn. I'm in a learning stage, learning mode almost constantly because of what everybody offers and enriches. Like Brother Donald says, it's a life enriching experience. I'm grateful to be here. God bless you all.
Could you call on someone?
Yes, I would like to call Douglas.
Hello, everybody. I'm Douglas. I live in Largo, Florida, which is in Pinellas County with Marianne and Sharon Joy. We're all in the same county here. And what brings me here, Joe invited us, another group that we are a Florida network. And if Joe says this is good, I totally believe anything he says. I believe. And I'm from a New Thought theological tradition, science of mind and unity. Belong to the church here for the science of mind. Longtime believer in climate, our engagement that we need as theologians, as people that are invested in source and a living earth. We need to be involved. This is very much, for me, an active thing. I'm not familiar with SETI. I'm glad to be here. I'm feel very privileged to be here and to meet you all. So thank you. And I will turn it over to Jose.
Hello, everybody. I love this once a month time with SETI and all these beautiful people that I see on the screen, and every time is different. I am a graduate from Barry University, Master's in Practical Theology and Ministry, where my passion was liberation theology and all the liberation theologies: ecology, woman, Black, Latino, Latinx, Hispanic, LGBTQ, queer. All of them are like the margins of my faith, where I can explore, grow, be challenged, and encounter Christ at its best and the love of Jesus in our times. And SETI, it's contextual, it's theology, and I always look forward to those moments where I can see that that contextualized theology in practice with you. Thank you.
Jose, do you want to pass it?
Yeah, I have to pass it. Gail, have you done it?
I did. I have gone.
Okay, what
Yes.
about, is Mary the last one?
We got Wilson, Kathy.
Kathy. and
Yeah.
Oh,
Kathy.
Wilson is missing. Let's do Wilson. Kathy wants to be last. Mary wants to be last. Let's do Wilson.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm down here in Fort Lauderdale, specifically in Tamarack, South Florida. I'm actually been known Brian as my professor, and then I graduated down in St. Thomas University in 2020 with a PhD in practical theology. I'm a hospice chaplain, and what interests me is the topic of hope. And the coming together to collaborate in the care of creation, the care of the people with so much love. I'm looking forward to the presentation. I'll call out, I think now it's Kathy, right? Is it the last one? Kathy, please.
I am. Thank you. I'm Kathy. I'm an Anglican, you call Episcopal, priest up here in Canada. And I'm here because Marianne invited me, and I have unbelievable admiration and respect for her work. So I'm happy to be here. And my husband has just called me for dinner, so I'm probably going to have to stop my video and mute, but I will still tune in because I don't think you want to watch me eat my dinner.
Good. Then I think, Marianne, I think you're ready.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Wow, what wonderful energy already in this group. I'm so grateful to be here with you. So I'm Ann Holtz, and for the past 4 decades, I've served here in St. Pete, Florida, as a spiritually grounded psychotherapist and a peace, justice, earth educator and activist. My current understanding of what is mine to do in this time of converging crises is to help individuals and groups build more practical, psychological, emotional, and spiritual resilience, practicing active hope. In the next 15 minutes, I'll be walking you through a quick overview of my document, which I first developed for a Caring for God's Creation conference in April 2008, and which I update regularly, the 10 steps in active hope for our personal and global health. You received the link in the document with the flyer for this event, and what I'm going to share tonight is explored in much more detail in the document. So no need to take notes unless that supports your processing the information. So I want to pull up a very simple slideshow. I want to arrange my screen so I can still see you all. Okay. So, active hope. I've been using the framework of active hope since 2011 when I read the first edition of Active Hope. How to face the mess we're in with unexpected resilience and creative power, written by Joanna Macy and Chris Johnstone. So I'm going to read their definition. Part of it is on the screen. Their definition: active hope is a practice. Like Tai Chi or gardening, it is something we do rather than something we have. It is a process we can apply to any situation, and it involves 3 key steps. First, we start from where we are by taking in a clear view of reality, acknowledging what we see and how we feel. Second, we identify what we hope for in terms of the direction we'd like things to move in, or the values that we hope to see expressed. And third, we take steps to move ourselves or our situation in that direction. Since active hope doesn't require our optimism, we can apply it even in areas where we feel hopeless. The guiding impetus is intention. We choose what we aim to bring about, act for, or express. Rather than weighing our chances and proceeding only when we feel hopeful, we focus on our intention and let it be our guide. And in light of the polycrisis, I have found that absolutely critical for myself, to not look at outcomes, but rather to look what is my intention and let that be my guide. So what is the polycrisis? Brian kind of referred to it a bit. The times in which we live are presenting all of us with challenges that seem not to have easy or even realistic possibilities for what we call good outcomes. In addition to the difficulties that all humans experience at times, we're now also becoming more aware of the interlocking global crises. Some writers are calling this the polycrisis, the evidence of which is usually separated into 2 buckets, environmental and social. I'm going to read a quote from one of the writers. The full link to it is in the document. Richard Heinberg wrote, "Signs of environmental crisis include climate change, the disappearance of wild nature, relentless resource depletion, the increasing chemical pollution of air and water, soil loss and degradation, and freshwater scarcity. Evidence of social crisis includes increasing economic inequality, poverty, racism, and other forms of discrimination, the rise of authoritarianism, and impacts of rapid technological change, such as automation. Our current set of crises can be described as a polycrisis because self-reinforcing feedbacks between ecological breakdown and social breakdown are strengthening and growing more numerous." Before we move into the 10 steps overview, I'm mindful that you likely have taken some or many of these steps already. I invite you, as we move through them, to celebrate what you're already doing, especially when we're all already experiencing the additional stressors created by increasing severe weather events and attacks on democracy. It's very helpful to focus on ways we have already been acting for the common good. So step 1 has 2 parts. Originally I had 1, and then as I've continued to develop this, a couple of these have 2 parts. So this one has 2 parts. The first is connecting to the source of love. And of course, that's what you all are dedicated to, as am I, to access and sustain the spiritual, emotional, and physical energy we require in order to be able to contribute our part in the transition to a life-sustaining society. We need both spiritual practices and healthy self-care. Daily prayer, meditation, spiritual reading and study, whatever practices inform and inspire you, help you to be rooted in divine love, in connection, compassion, and hope, and help you to open to divine guidance. The second part is creating a plan for healthy self-care and stress protection. As you open your mind and heart to the polycrisis, you will likely experience what some people are calling the hard emotions of grief, anger, and fear. Realize that this means you're allowing the divine to wake you up. These are healthy human responses. At the same time, we need to choose practices that help us regulate our physical and emotional responses so that we avoid despair, denial, or driven behaviors leading us to exhaustion. I call these my basic three: present moment living, or one day at a time, grounding myself in God's presence right here and now, every time I notice I've tensed up or am worrying. So I'm doing that right this minute, grounding myself in God's presence here with us. Gratefulness is the second of my basic three, practicing gratefulness all through the day and when I'm wakeful during the night, focusing on specific things, people, events that I'm grateful for. Right now, I'm grateful for this time with you all, that you want to be here together. And service, helping others in whatever way I'm able and I'm led by God. And I hope that I'm doing that, offering service right now. So when I can't even think about all my other tools, these are the three I go to. And there are lots of others that I've listed in my document, including some specifically about getting support when we're feeling the climate anxiety or fear or depression, all those kind of things. Step 2, getting outdoors and opening up to the revelation of love through all of creation, experiencing our physical connection to the earth community, because we act to save that which we love. And there's growing evidence that spending time in the natural world is a powerful way to enhance our physical and mental health. We are living in terribly fast-paced ways, flooded often with stress chemicals. So making time to be out in the natural world in whatever way we can, and I know for us in Florida this time of year it's a little difficult, but in whatever way we can is really, really so important that I made it step 2. The next steps, I'm sure you've heard a number of these already in many of the other places you've been learning about what's going on for our environment in particular. Step 3 is reducing. So by consuming less, our economy is based, of course, on unbridled growth and production. It's driving us to destroy the very life systems of Earth upon which we're dependent for survival. Our conspicuous consumption and accumulation of stuff leads us to live overworked, overstressed, unhealthy lifestyles. And directly linked to our excesses is the devastating poverty and hunger of half of the people on our earth, as well as the increasing impacts of the climate crisis. And there's some resources in my document for all of these. And sharing more, so as we consume less, we free up more resources, both financial and time resources, that we can then dedicate to others who need those. Step 4, reusing, repairing, and recycling. I frequently remind myself what I learned some years ago. There is no away when we throw away. Our species is not only extracting much more from the natural world than the earth can now regenerate, we're also dumping more toxins than it can purify. Step 5 is choosing food. One area for action which recurs in nearly every resource I've studied over the years involves the impact of our food choices. The first recommended action here is to step by step move toward a plant-based diet, away from animal products, especially those marketed by the industrial food system. There's also strong evidence that one of the most powerful ways to live a longer, healthy life is to eat a mostly plant-based whole foods diet. And there are resources, including a link for guidance from registered dietitians in my document. One way to combine step 2, getting outdoors, with this step is to begin or enlarge your own home food garden. Transportation, of course, driving less, walking, biking, busing, carpooling more, planning errands so you drive the fewest miles possible. Those are some of the many ways we can address this. I seriously invite you to consider taking the no-fly commitment with me and others who have made that commitment, or fly less at least, prioritizing truly essential flights. You can check out the info on carbon offsetting in my document, though the New York Times did a review concluding they're not really helpful. So flying less is really the best option, or if you're able to make a donation to a good cause, they suggest making a donation equal to the actual carbon cost of your flight, which is a lot more expensive than the actual flight. And they've got a way to figure that out on the site. Excuse me. So there's a whole bunch of energy use things that I'm sure you all have seen, seen many sites that give you examples. So I won't spend any time on that. There's lots of things in my document and elsewhere you can find on that. And how energy and water saving work together. Over a period of time, over some years, I've worked to make my garden fossil fuel free, except for a very small amount of city water I use during the dry season, as we've had lately. For my flowers, I've got a few flowers and my veggies. I remember how dismayed I was when I learned that my city water was pumped from many, many miles away, which uses lots of fossil fuel energy for pumping and then for processing. So I really didn't know how much water and energy were connected. Excuse me. Step 9 is investing. And I know not a lot of people have money to invest, but if you do, this is a place where we really can make a difference. We can use our investments to look seriously. Are they polluting? Are they using and or extracting fossil fuels like there's no end? Are they investing things like tobacco and weapons? Or are they investing in alternative energies development, affordable housing, education, community, healthcare, and environmental protection? One easy change we can make is to move from our local banking from banks to credit unions. And in addition to investing in renewable energies, I'm deeply committed to community investing, especially where it offers empowerment for the poorest of the poor. And so sometimes they call that impact investing. I've invested my retirement funds so that they're useful to my sisters and brothers who are living in poverty now or living in need, through investing in affordable housing, job creation, microcredit, small business loans, etc. As a small personal step toward reparations to Black communities, I've invested some of my retirement funds in Hope Credit Union, and there's more information of that in my document. And also, I make a referral to the Natural Investments group of investment advisors who are committed to this kind of investing. So if you do have retirement savings or other savings, I highly recommend you look into working with somebody like Natural Investments. And finally, and this I really see as an absolutely essential step, while our personal changes are essential, they're important, and I think they're important in large part, not because they change the bigger systems, but because they keep us awake. They do for me. That's why I review this document myself once a year. However, without community, city, state, national, corporate, and global changes, we're not going to make an adequate impact. We're going to risk isolation, despair, and increasing devastating consequences. So 2 ways to do that. One is to create local communities of mutual support, and you have one already, obviously, in SETI. Some of you here might actually want to meet again to support each other in the practice of active hope, perhaps reviewing the 10 steps, celebrating what you're doing, and encouraging further steps. Many of the resources I've studied related to the crises we face suggest that one of the blessings we may be able to receive as a result of having to navigate perilous times is a renewal of our local and faith communities, because more and more of us will realize how much we need each other. And there are online support groups to help us work with climate anxiety, depression, burnout, and some of those are in my document. The second part of this is joining with others to take action to influence government and corporations to make the urgent changes needed. I've listed my favorites in the document, including several faith-based groups. Pick a few groups which seem to be compatible with your views, research them, and then choose one or two to join. Join the action alert networks of the groups, make the calls, send the emails and letters, go to the gatherings they organize. I'm currently joining with others via Zoom in action to protect our democracy and our climate through phone banking and postcarding before national, state, and municipal elections with the Environmental Voter Project. And that's also in my document. So thank you. And as we prepare to be moved into breakout groups, I'm going to place the link to this document in the chat. And I'm also going to post a prompt. And I'll say my prompt before I post it in the chat. The prompt is, and use whatever works for you when you get there. But if you need a prompt, this is it. How might the frameworks of active hope and polycrisis help you to shift the ways you live and work?
I'm going to volunteer Donald.
I'm not one to letting Joe down, so I'm going to try to say a few things. So much came out of our conversations, and one of the great things that came out of it was the fact of Joe shared so much about his advocacy on the things that the actions that needs to be taken. And that's a long conversation, but the importance of actions being taken now that will help sustain our planet, sustain our situations of life, and the various categories that Marianne laid out very well. Importance of taking actions. And I think that for me, as I listened to the conversations and as our conversation shifted, that's a big paradigm shift for us, taking those actions, being advocates of the things that we want to be corrected, and following those multiple steps. For us, it's something that is not only endearing, it's something that I say always leads to human flourishing. It also builds relationship. I think that that's another thing that came up in the conversation very well. The internet is able to help us build relationships in such a way that the magnitude with which we would never have been able to fathom in our lifetime. So those very important steps were key to the conversations. Many other things flowed from it, but one of the biggest take for me was the fact that the advocacy thing and the connections and the relationships will lead very much so to human flourishing, aware of the kinds of shifts that are necessary for us. So that much I can share.
Well, the thing that stood out for me when we were talking with Donald and Joe was around the fact that all three of us are from different places and we're all suffering from the same dilemma. So it's not something that's just focused in one part of the world, it's everywhere. And that really jumped out for me in our talk.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Part of this is how we are evolving as humanity, and that we learn and grow through our interactions and in what we do, not just what we think. Right? And the relationships are really a fertile ground for that evolution and that growth and that development. Yeah, thank you for that. Feels very alive.
Right at the end of my time with Sharon Joy and Wilson, which I'm really grateful for their presence and what each of them shared. Because Wilson is a hospice worker, I shared a metaphor that I've heard a number of folks speak of, which is that we are both hospice workers to basically a dying civilization, and midwives to the evolution. And Sharon Joy said she is part of the midwifing, and I immediately said I'm part of the hospice working. And now I'm thinking about it, I also am a midwife. I really am. I wouldn't be here with you tonight if I didn't believe there was some possibility that enough of us might be open to the Holy Spirit and maybe, possibly, make enough of a shift that we avoid catastrophe. But at the same time, I'm aware catastrophe is a real possibility, and I want to help people find ways to be resilient so they can live the way of love no matter what.
Yeah, that makes me think of a quantum universe where both things are possible, where we are both midwifing and doing the hospicing as well.
Right.
And yeah, we can live fully into both of those. Did you want to add something to that, Sharon Joy?
No, not really. I'm much of as I was saying, I'm stirring the pots for the evolution. And what I am motivated, did not say this in the conversation, but am now in that midwifing role. In Florida, I have discovered the most, I think, delicious invitation, which is called hurricane season. It doesn't have any colors on it. It doesn't have red or blue or purple. Nothing can stop hurricanes. And hurricanes have found Florida to be a delightful place to jump around, to cross over, to threaten. So for me, I find hurricane season right now, that just started last Saturday, could be one of the most delightful ways to bring us together in our neighborhoods, share our resources. And guess what? Once we start to get to know each other, we may not think they're the villain, and we might even think that we're not crazy because we're voting for a different candidate. And guess what? Along the way, we start to learn about feeding ourselves in the coming decades. So I'm imagining the peninsula of Florida becoming our community garden because of hurricane season. It's a sneaky way in to bring community together. So
Beautiful.
see, that's my pot stirring.
It's beautiful. That's great. So we should all maybe take note of where are the delicious invitations in our lives. Right? Yeah. Those places where new things and new ways of being can break forward, emerge through the cracks. It's beautiful.
Thanks for asking.
Thank you for sharing. It's beautiful. Would love to hear a few other voices. Go ahead, Douglas.
I found it very exciting meeting new kin. I mean, that we are all heart-centered in this together. It's in Buddhist terms, we call this a sangha, just a community that we're getting together, that we have these shared beliefs. So I was in just a delightful group. I mean, with Katie and Brian. Santiago was there, but it was silent. We couldn't hear him, but we know that he was picking this up and throwing his vibrations at us also. So, but it was just a delightful conversation. I found such camaraderie. We have different lineages and all that, but still this sense of going in the same direction, the same heart-centeredness and all that. It was just a pleasure listening to Katie and Brian talking about their understanding of this. Again, meeting new kin gives me that hope, that active hope, that there's many of us, cultural creatives also called, that are out there. There's many of us connecting with each other. It's like the links in the brain, the neurophysiological, the synapses are just connecting. And we are forming that global mind to really address this. So this gives me hope. It very much does. I want to say also, Marianne, very much miss our getting together. We got together for several years talking about these kind of things
Yeah,
in
for
a group
5
of
years,
therapists.
as psychotherapists, we met monthly for 5 years, way before most people in our field were thinking about this.
Right.
And now, thank God, more therapists are.
Yeah.
Yeah, we presented at several conferences in the state of Florida. We went and presented about this topic at several conferences, and so it's been a real delight to meet all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Douglas. It's beautiful. Your sense of joy just was effervescent. Katie, are you leaning in?
Well, I was a part of that group. I echo what Douglas said, and just want to underscore in that delight was empowerment for me. That I find that the power of community, and that each of us from our own naming of spirit and sense of spirituality. When I hear from a Christian's perspective, for example, that they all might be one, that conversations like this expand and enlarge that oneness to include other ways of understanding, of self-understanding and of spiritual understanding. And I find that very energizing and empowering, and it gives me a sense of active hope that there are connecting points within my circle, and then within this broader circle, to the extent to the point that there is no my circle, that it's just one big circle.
Yeah. Yeah, I could jump in on that. I'll give you an example. This morning, a friend asked me, jump into this webinar out of Wisconsin. It's a Catholic roundtable, and I want you to participate. So I got in, and I realized how far I've come from. These are all environmentalist people, all Catholics, organizing, advocacy. But most of the time it was, how do we talk to our bishop? How do we talk to our pastor? What happens with the Catholic state Catholic conference? And I was like, I was pulling my hair out, because I'm so far away of thinking about hierarchies, like, well, Sharon Joy taught me this word, holarchy. The power is in the whole, it's in the network. All these powerful people, they're like maybe 20 on this call, all around the country. And they had all this power, they had all this opportunity. That was where the power was. But they were trying to strategize. What if our pastor says this? What if the state conference says that? And I was like, I didn't say anything. I didn't have the energy, But I really think we have the power.
Yes.
The more ordinary we are, the more power we have. That's how I feel. So I with Douglas and Kathy, what you're saying, and others, yeah, the power is in the relationship and the network and in the learning. And actually, this process we're using tonight, I've learned from Sharon Joy in the middle there, with the Florida Network, this process of connecting each other and learning, and what Douglas said, the whole is more powerful than any part. We're creating that whole. And out of a religious sense, to me, it's like the body of Christ. I mean, it's the whole. We have language, religious language for this, but it's really in reality. We just have different words, So anyway, I'm sorry I'm rambling there, but it was such a shock to jump in and hear all that conversation, as if we're powerless unless someone tells us something. Oh boy.
Joe, the Catholic Church doesn't have a prayer with you around.
Huh. Well, they do, because I know the word where the word Catholic comes from, comes from two Greek words, kataholos. It means concern for the whole.
See what I
That's-
mean? See what I
Yeah,
mean?
that's what Catholic means. It means the whole, everything, not a part.
They
So
taught
anyway,
you well. So you're becoming a teenager
exactly.
and you're
Yeah,
standing out against the parents.
somebody's a midwife, someone's a hospice. I think I'm a teenager. You're right. I'll choose that. Very good.
I've had a chance to listen, fortunately, to a good deal of what people have been saying, and it's nice to hear people who bring seriousness and joy to these things. I feel like I'm just going to share a perspective, and then for what it's worth, and it's probably a perspective that comes from my being less practiced in this area than any of you, but it's the following. It seems to me that if we're going to live in a world which is not a fossil fuel dependent world, there are going to have to be changes. And those changes, I think, are mostly seen by people as negatives of not being able to do this or that or the other thing. And people get, rebellious and resentful and sad and whatever about things like that. But I'm thinking that in order to take things to where we want them to go, we need to have a positive vision. We need to have a picture of the world after fossil fuel dependence. And what is it like? And what are all the wonderful things about it? And what fun we're going to have and all of that. And I don't see, at least from my perspective, I just don't see enough of that in the environmental movement. I see lots of Ralph Nader, but no Edward Bernays. I don't know if anybody knows who Edward Bernays was, but he was Sigmund Freud's son-in-law, and he was really the first recognized public relations genius. And a lot of things he did were not very admirable. For instance, he sort of got going the idea that women could and should smoke. Not much to be grateful for about that, but I'm sure he did other things, but that's one that really stuck out. And it just seems to me we need to be more open to the idea of having a positive vision and presenting it and getting people on board with that.
Yeah, Santiago, I like that. We need to talk more about clean air, clean water, beautiful flowers, the things that will flourish, okay, if we don't burn, we don't pollute. Yeah, I like that. I hadn't thought about that. Thank you.
Yeah, and what people's daily lives are going
Yes.
to be like. What it's going to be like to wake up in a non-fossil fuel dependent world.
Yeah, I like that.
And there's a lot of thinking that needs to be devoted to that. It's not necessarily obvious what that is going to look and feel like, but we need to have that look and feel there for people to get excited about.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you. That's very helpful to me.
My concern about that is that I think those outcomes are not terribly likely, and so it's still focusing on outcomes. So if we can focus instead on the process. So the process of moving in that direction is we get to build more vibrant communities. We maybe have some local food that's much healthier for everybody. We can focus more on what we can do together now as we move in that direction that's going to help us even if we don't get there, because I really don't think we're going to get there. We've squandered decades, so I don't think we're going to get there. But I think the process is still, we can use active hope to develop all kinds of motivation about now how our life can be different if we live in a different way, how much less addiction and stress and all of that we could perhaps create if we choose to live differently now.
Well, now is fine. I mean,
Yeah, it's good.
So as we're coming up towards the end of our time together, I wanted to ask if there's anyone else who would like to share and bring their voice into the space before we close.
Yeah, I'll jump in.
Go ahead.
I'd like to talk about, I just been thinking, and I forgot to share this with Sharon, Joy, and Marianne. I shared with them, like, I'm from the Pentecostal evangelical, community. So, and I was, I used some terms, which are very, of course, familiar with my tradition. And one of the things I'm thinking about now is we talk about, the discipling of nations. And I think for me, as one of the challenges that I, I'm making my own choices. We talked about the choices we are making, but also I think is to bring someone under me to disciple. I think that's a challenge because, and I think it takes, of course, it starts with me, but I think being very actively trying to disciple someone else, because that's the language I use in my. So I just trying to frame my own tradition, my own action steps, for that helps me because I think if I'm, we evangelize, we try to disciple, the world, to convert or to become Christians, but I think it's the same gospel because it's the holistic gospel. If I can be able to be very active evangelizing or discipling someone else, to be actively taking these action steps, it helps me. I'm just thinking about, like Sharon Joy was talking about, she's working with a particular lady who is politically on the other side, but I think we need to be that bold enough to really try to bring someone alongside us, So anyway, just my thoughts. I'm skipping the process.
No, thank you. Thanks.
Jose, did you want to come in?
Yeah, just shortly. I was profoundly challenged by those 10 items. Some of them I do incorporate in my life. Some of them I was shocked. I kind of, what? So no more Europe to hope for. So I have to kind of, look deep into that. They're eating no meat. So there are things that I have to look into my life. Also, it's a beautiful implementation of the Timeless See Judge Act, what they did with the Active Hope, beautifully done. And I like what Sharon say, which is something I do in my private spirituality when I pray in church. I'm Catholic. All our prayers are we. There is no me. There is no I. So I really changed them. And I do both so that I can. And I do it because I noticed that when I do the we, it's very impersonal. But when I do the I, it's really calling me, it's challenging me, it's comforting me in a very personal way. So Sharon, thanks for sharing that. Yeah.
Thank you, Jose. I'm wondering if there's someone, thank you, Santiago. Thank you so much. We're glad you were able to bring your voice in and spend the evening with us. If there's someone who would like to offer a closing prayer or blessing or gratitude for the group as we close.
I guess it's you, Sue.
I'm happy to do that. So we'll take a moment to just thank the divine creator for this time together, for the rich exchange, for the vitality, for the joy, for the deliciousness of our time together. And we ask that it nourish and illuminate our steps going forward. And with that, I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Amen.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Amen.
Thanks,
Thank you very much. Pleasure meeting all of you.
All right. Thank
Nice
you.
to